Okay, so we're going to do a ceramic project, and I'm going to use only things that I imagine you can be able to find around your house, some of the things I provided you. One way or the other, this is about 2 pounds of clay. The clay that you picked up at Staples, for those of you who picked up clay at Staples, that's 4 pounds of clay. So this is half of that amount of clay. So if you divide your clay in half, take the first half, put it, I would actually recommend you take the half that you are not using for this project, put it in water underneath the sink, and then put it back in the bag and let it sit there. That way, if it happens to be drying out a little bit, it'll soften up a little bit. So next time I give you one of these assignments, which will be sometime after spring break, your clay will still be soft. Don't leave your bag open, because your clay is going to become a hard brick, and that's going to be something that's going to be difficult to deal with. If, by the way, you already have a hard brick of clay, the answer is to wrap it in a towel, put it back in the bag, and leave it there for a couple days, and it should slowly kind of soften up. One way or the other, this assignment is going to require you to use about 2 pounds of clay. First thing I want you to do is I want you to divide this in half, and I'm just going to rip it in half. Normally I'd be using a wire, but since you guys don't have this wire around, you could use some other sort of wire around the house if you want to. But one way or the other, I want you to start out by cutting it in half. Let's go ahead and just have you do half. So about half. Maybe a little bit less than half would be better, but half is fine. I want you to take the half that you're not using right now and put it back into your Ziploc bag. I'm putting into this bag, but you should be putting yours into the Ziploc bag for the moment so that it doesn't dry out while you're working with this half of the clay. So this is about 1 pound of clay. Now, at this point, you want to make sure that when you, as you're messing around with your clay, you want to avoid putting any air bubbles in it. So if let's say this was our big ball of clay, and I had it shaped, and I had it like this, and I just randomly kind of fold that over on itself, I might have just put an air bubble inside there. And that's a dangerous thing, to have air bubbles inside your clay. So when you're working with your clay, always try to make sure that you keep air from being folded into it in some way. You're going to take this piece of clay here, and you're going to smash it down. Now, you'll notice I happen to be working on a board here. A board is an excellent choice if it doesn't have a surface to it, like it doesn't have paint or it doesn't have anything, it's just basically raw wood. That's going to help you to be able to have this not stick. See how my clay is not sticking? If you had this on a slick surface, something say with linoleum on it or vinyl or something, then you might have a problem with your clay sticking. But it's likely to stick if you get this wet. So you want to try to keep this thing, you don't want it to get too wet. Now, if you have a rolling pin at home for baking or making cookies or so forth, that would be the ideal thing for you to be using. But for right now, I'm going to presume that you don't have a rolling pin, and I've looked around my house for something, and I found a pump. Is what I have here. I was going to use a candle that I had, but one way or the other, I'm going to use the pencils that I provided you. Every one of you should have pencils to kind of determine how tall this is going to be. If I had a rolling pin, I could deal with both pencils at one time, but as I'm trying to avoid using things that I don't know that everybody has, and I'm worried that somebody's going to say, I don't have a rolling pin. If I get an email that says I don't have a rolling pin, I'm going to wonder, well, okay, what else do you have around your house? Because I've got a bottle, and a bottle would do the same thing as well. That actually is probably better than that, than the thing that I was just using. One way or the other, I want you to make a slab. There's a slab that's about the thickness of your pencils. Okay? Your next step is going to be for you to determine the shape that you're going to make here. Probably should have thought about this ahead of time, but I'm going to make a heart, because I think that's what a lot of people are going to want to do. I'm going to draw a heart on here. And for your assignment, I want you to do an interesting shape. So I don't want you to do just a square or just a circle. I want you to choose an interesting shape, and I want it to be a pretty good size. I don't want these things to be too tiny. And I want you to do an interesting shape, so I drew a heart on there. Okay? If you are interested, you can watch the other video I did where I made a coil pot, which is what we're making here, and I did a Mickey Mouse ears. You can watch that one as well. The only reason I'm not saying, hey, watch my video of me making a coil pot before is because in that video I'm using clay tools that we were going to be using in class, and I'm specifically trying to avoid that video because you won't necessarily have those tools. So I'm trying to work with a kitchen steak knife instead of a needle tool, which the other video would have shown. I would love to be using this tool today, but I'm not, because you don't have that at home. So I'm working only with tools that you should probably be able to find around your house. Everybody should be able to find some sort of knife around their house. All right, so next step is you're going to cut out your shape. And remove your extra clay. Now, if you're doing this slowly, if you're taking quite a bit of time to do this, then you should be keeping your clay kind of wrapped up or covered. You might also, something that would be a good idea, I'm going to go grab something real quick. Take me just about 10 seconds. Just stay there, Jeff. Hey, it's Bilbo, that's my dog. Okay, so what I've got here is some paper towels, which I got damp. It could be any other towel. And you could keep your clay that you're trying to make sure that it doesn't dry out inside a towel or inside some paper towels, just enough that it kind of stays damp while you're working, because you don't want air drying this stuff out while you're working. Okay, I'm going to ask you to submit several different photos while you're working so that I can see what you're doing and give you advice and talk to you about it. So the first image I want you to send to me is this. I want to just see the shape cut out on a board that you're ready to work on. You text that to me, and if you need my text number, I'm not going to give it out on YouTube, so you're going to need to contact me and get that number. Text me this image so that I know that you're already working, and I know what you're working with, and I can text you back, hey, wait, you need to make sure you do whatever if I see you doing something wrong. Okay? If you have this image to me sometime between right now, when you see this message, and we're gonna say Sunday at 12 o'clock. If you send me a text message of this image between now and Sunday at 12 o'clock, that's today's the 3rd, 4th, so we're on the 5th. Sunday, the 5th of April, by 12 o'clock, I will give you 2 points extra credit for having got it started early. Okay? Now, the next thing you're going to do, so this is image number 1. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to score up this surface. So you're going to scratch it up. Now, if you worked on this, and you did this, and then you let it set and it got a little dry, because maybe you're working on this and then you went away and you're still sitting, and later on, maybe the next day or something, you come back to this thing and it's starting to stiff up, then this is really important that you scratch this really deep. If this has started to change color, if it's lightened because it's significantly dry, then you want to take this and wrap it in some damp, not wet, paper towels and let it sit for a few hours. And that'll cause it to get a little bit less dry. This needs to still be somewhat malleable. It shouldn't be soft like this. It doesn't necessarily, it can be soft like this, but it doesn't need to be soft like this. But you need to be able, you can't put your finger on it and press and make a dent. It's too dry. And you need to soften it up a little bit. Okay, put it in some paper towels, let it sit, or put it in a regular towel damp. You don't want it to get wet. If you put it in like a sopping wet towel and you leave it for 10 minutes, it's gonna become mud again. You don't want that. You just wanna put a little bit of water on it, let it sit, put it in a bag, let it kind of soften up a little bit. Okay? Okay. So now, once you've scratched this thing up, okay, you're going to take a little bit of water. I'm going to grab a kitchen sponge. And I put a little bit of water on that edge. Now, this is not necessarily as important if you are working, if your clay is really soft. If you have basically just rolled this thing out and you're immediately going to keep going, then you don't necessarily need to add this water. But you definitely want to add this water if you're at all dried out. You definitely want to get this thing wet. This is called scoring, which you guys should have learned from watching the Great Pottery Throwdown. Okay. All right, next, you're going to take the clay. You're going to break it up into pieces about the size of, I'm going to say, what is this thing? This is the size of a, I don't know, what do you think, Jasper? What is that?
I'm not sure.
Smaller than a golf ball. It's a large grape, maybe. You're going to roll them out. Once again, this is a lot easier to do because my board is dry. My clay is not sticking to it. If you're having trouble with sticking, you need to get some sort of surface. You need to try some different surfaces around your house and look for one that it doesn't stick to. I'm going to roll this into a coil about that thick, and that's about the thickness of a thick pencil. I'm going to put up a pencil next to the coil so you can kind of get an idea. It's a little thicker than a pencil. And you're going to score this surface. And you're going to press this down really well into the surface. See how I kind of ran that down into the surface right there? And then I'm going to take the rest of it, and I'm just going to go around. Now, it is important that you do not cut this at a corner like the bottom of this heart. Don't cut it and then go the other direction. If you're working with something with hard edges, you do not want to cut this, because if you do that, every time you're going to end up with a seam right here, which is where it's likely to crack. So instead of cutting it, I have just gone right around the corner and kept going. Okay. Now I'm going to take the other piece and I'm going to roll this into a coil. I'm looking for, I had a thin spot right here, so I kind of fold it over like that. And I'm going to kind of smush it together because I don't want to have a really thin spot. Coil. Scratch. And then I'm going to go here. And I'm actually, see where I stopped right here? I'm going to smush that down again like that so that it blends in just like that one blended in there. I'm going to take this and I'm going to smush that so that it gets thin on the edge, so there's like a little thinness to there. And I'm going to put that right on top of that and keep going. Now I've got another spot here where some of you would be likely to cut that and then start the other direction. You do not want to do that. You just want to keep going. And when you get to this other side, you're going to score this surface here and you're just going to keep going. Now, we're about to approach image number 2. I'm going to take this edge here, I'm going to push down into that. Now, for image number 2, once you have gone all the way around at least once, you go ahead and keep going with the coil right on top of the next one. And then I want you to take a moment to really blend that bottom line. Get in here close, Jasper. I'm going to rotate this thing. Come down here so you can see. See, I've got the slab on the bottom. I've got that first coil. I'm really going to make sure that I get that really well blended all the way around the outside edge. Now, mine's blending very easily, and the reason for that is because my slab is really soft because I just did this. If your slab is stiffer, it may be a little bit more difficult. But I also want you to do that on the inside. In fact, I'm going to have you use one of your pencils, which you're going to have to clean later because you're going to get clay on it. What I want you to do is this. I want you to take your pencils and I want you to, I'll do it over here.
Okay.
I'll push all the way around. I want you to push some of the clay from the coil down into the bottom. You're going to push all the way around the whole thing. What we're doing here is I'm going to tell you that if this thing cracks in the kiln, it's going to happen right here. This is where it is very likely to crack. Is right here where you connected a slab and a coil. Oh, this is awesome because this is the picture I'm going to expect of you, and I'm going to expect to be able to see the shape of that eraser going all the way around. So picture number 2 is going to show this, where I have a coil that is clearly 2 and 3. Picture number 2 should be like this. I'm going to come around to the camera. Your picture number 2 should be something along the lines of that, where I can clearly see that this has been blended and smoothed up to that surface there. Actually, an image like this is perfect because it's just one picture. So this is picture number 2. I want a picture that looks like this, where I can see the slab and I can see that it is well blended on the outside, and I can look across and I can see that you've used a pencil to push that into the surface. That's the second picture I want. Okay? The next thing I want you to do is I want you to take a moment to try to clean up that edge and make it look good on the inside. I'm using my finger, trying to think of what else I might use. A sponge wouldn't be a bad idea. However, regarding a sponge, you're going to want to use a sponge to add a bunch of water to your piece, and I don't want that. Because if you get too much water on your piece, it's going to get sloppy and soggy, and that's going to be a problem. So I'm going to go around here and I'm going to press this. I think that some of you are likely to end up really thin down here. You need to be careful about that. You don't want to push too much of your coil down into your pot. You want to make sure that when you're done, it's still about the width of a pencil going all the way around. Getting a nice solid starting base is what's really, really important. Okay? Okay, so now I'm going to retrieve the rest of that clay, which is this clay right here. Actually, it's not. I have a large chunk of clay. I have all of this clay. I'm going to tear off chunks, once again, about the size of a large grape. Maybe a little bigger. And at this point, I'm going to stop talking because Jasper's going to keep videoing here. And I'm going to fast forward in the final video. So you're going to see me work, but I'm going to stop talking because all you're going to see is see me completing this project. At the end of the video, I will start talking again. But for right now, we're going to fast forward to about 24 times speed so you can just kind of watch me work. Okay? Up here for a second. Over here, look at me. I want them to look at me. All right, so just so you know, at this point, I'm recognizing my clay is getting a little drier, and I'm working a lot faster than you're going to be. So once again, keep that clay off to the side, because I'm working much faster than you would be working. So you need to make sure, and if you stop for a few minutes and you let this thing set and it starts drying out, you should definitely be adding a little water after you score it up. After you score the edge, you should add some water. Anytime, if this has had a chance to dry out and you're putting fresh clay onto it, you definitely want to moisten that clay and add slip to it, which basically for you guys is just going to mean adding some water and getting that edge kind of wet again. All right, going back into fast forward mode now. Okay, back up to the top. Okay, so at this point, I have added all of my coils. And at this point, I want you to take a picture. Just like this, as soon as you get all your coils kind of put, I want you to take a picture. So I believe this is the third picture. First picture was just the slab. Second picture showed the slab connected to the first coil. The third picture you're going to submit to me is going to be just this. Basically, all your coils kind of built up. They don't need to be, the whole thing doesn't need to be perfect, but it's just kind of build up this whole thing so I can take a look at it and send this to me. Let's see, what did I do? Sunday at noon, I said for the first thing we'll get you extra credit. For the second picture, if you have it to me by when I wake up Monday morning, I will give you extra credit for that. So the second picture by Monday morning when I wake up and check. The third picture, if you have this to me by Monday at noon, then I will give you extra credit for that. And then the last thing is basically that if you had this to me by Monday night, midnight, basically if I wake up on Tuesday morning and this is and this thing is entirely done, which is the end of this video, then you will get 20% extra credit for the entire assignment. The whole assignment is going to be worth 20 points. So if you have this entire assignment done and you've sent me this picture before you go to bed on Monday night, then you will end up getting 24 out of 20, which is full credit. Okay. Actually, that's what full credit is. I might be giving people a variance of that 20 points depending on what I see. Let's just say that the maximum grade you could get is 24 out of 20, which is if you had this thing done by Monday night. If you did work that was pretty well, you followed most of the directions, and say I wanted to give you a 16 out of 20 instead of 20 out of 20, then I would give you the 16 plus 20% of 16, which would be another 3, so I'd give you 19 out of 20. One way or the other, you're going to get 20% extra credit if you have your work turned in before you go to bed on Monday night. If you this is due by Tuesday night, so if you don't want to be docked half of your grade, you'll have this to me by Tuesday night at midnight, which is the end of this session, because there's not going to be any more. From what I understand right now, after Tuesday, you won't be back and doing work again until after spring break, which is like a week and a half at that point. So, as I currently understand it, we are going to be working until Tuesday night, and then we're all going to have a break. So, how are we going to finish this thing? What I want you to do to finish this thing, I found a piece of cardboard, like this from a cereal box, and I know you all have scissors because I provided that to you. I'm going to cut kind of a piece of cardboard. It's got some plastic on it, so it's not going to be as easy to soak up water. And I'm going to use that in lieu of the ceramic tool, which I have at this point thrown away too far. And I'm going to use that to try to smooth this thing together. I'm going to require that some effort be put into smoothing the outside. I am not going to require that you smooth the inside. So if you want to, you can smooth both. You can use your fingers a little bit in here. Be careful about putting too much water on this, because at this point you're tempted to just get this thing wet. If you get this thing wet, it's going to really start falling apart on you. But a little bit of water could help, especially if your clay is a little dry. But too much water is definitely going to be a problem. Okay, and I'm going to stop talking again so I can fast forward through this section as I record myself smoothing this thing out. Okay, back up here. All right, so here's what we're looking for in terms of a final project. and the last photograph for you to submit by Monday night at midnight if you want to get 20% extra credit, by Tuesday night at midnight if you want to just get regular credit. I will look at your work and determine success towards this goal, and I will do the best I can to be fair and give you a grade that I think reflects your success. I do grade on success, not grade on effort. So emails telling me that about effort, I can't grade on effort because I'm not there to watch that effort. I need to grade on success towards a goal. What we're looking for here is a coil pot shaped in an interesting manner so that it's not just a square or a circle, some sort of interesting shape that is identifiable. I can say, hey, that's a whatever. Some sort of, don't do a star. Star is a bad idea because of the fact that there's just too many different angles. You're just going to set yourself up for a difficulty unless you're really looking for a challenge. Do something that's fairly recognizable or interesting. You're looking for a pot, should be at least 2 inches tall, should be about that big in general, and you're going to be sending me a series of photos. I expect it to be fairly well smoothed out around the sides. If you look at mine, it's not perfect, it's not beautiful, it's reasonably well smoothed out on the sides. The interior, if you'll notice, the inside has not been smoothed out at all. That is fine, I got no problem with that. If you want to go to the effort of smoothing out the inside, you could also do that if you wanted to, but not required. Now, if I tried to pick this thing up right now, because it's pretty wet, it's going to stick to the board. So if you're in this position here like I am, just let it sit for a little while and it's going to dry and kind of pop off on its own. So that's the end of the video. We're going to have this due by next Tuesday night. You can text me with difficulties that you're having and send me pictures so that I can look at them. If I get a text and I look at it and I go, okay, maybe I'll give you some advice on that.